Sorry, I got confused.
What's this, you gonna be clerk tonight?
I will if you want me to.
I don't know, Judy, you want to? Who wants to be clerk?
I'll do it if
you
you
go.
want. I'm sitting here, I guess. Whatever.
I guess
you can
so.
sit here if you want. You do. I don't care. Whatever you want to do. I'll do
I
it.
guess you're the
All right.
slave and designee then.
You have to make a motion to make me acting clerk.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the November 19th, 2013 meeting of the Town of Wareham Board of Selectmen and Sewer Commissioners. The first order of business is for us to appoint a clerk pro tem, as Clerk Slavin is not with us tonight. So, you picking up on that, Stephen, there?
Yeah, okay. I move that Patrick Tropiano be appointed clerk pro tem for the evening.
Second.
Motion made by Selectman Whiteside, seconded by Selectman Holmes. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? 4-0-0. Next order of business, please.
Roll call. All present is Selectman Whiteside, Selectman Holmes, Selectman Tropianos, Selectman Titlebaum, and Town Administrator Derek Sullivan.
Okay.
Announcements, Judy?
Yes, thank you.
See if we got any in the packet here.
First of all, I'd like to congratulate, again, because they've already been congratulated, the 15 fourth grade students at the Deacons Elementary School who were inducted into the National Elementary Honor Society. Success at any level, even if it's in fourth grade, is really important in our school system. So cheers to you guys and gals, and to the teachers, to the administration, and certainly to the parents of those children. Second of all, I want to remind you that your one and only opportunity to see me dolled up beyond belief is this Friday at the library in the murder mystery, where I am, by popular vote, can I say hoochie on the air? No way. Tickets are $30. They will be available at the door, and I guarantee that you will have a really good time. It's very, very funny. Some of the funniest people are not me, believe it or not. And then on a personal note, I just want to say that we are coming up on the 50th anniversary of President John Kennedy's assassination. I actually remember what I was doing at the moment that the announcement came across the news, unlike a whole lot of you in this room, and remember being traumatized at the time because I was a school child. We were about to play a field hockey game against our biggest rival, and both teams voted to play the game. I have no idea who won the game. Could care less. What I do remember is a week, a month, a year of feeling scared about what the world was coming to. And I'm guessing that many of today's kids have the same kind of reaction to what's going on, that what they see on the news every day, if they watch the news or their parents do. We live in a really pretty tough time. So it was not the end of an era, it was the beginning of an era. We'll go from there.
So I guess it's reveal where you were tonight. I'm the baby of the group.
Not quite.
Not quite.
Not quite? I was 4.
Pretty close, though.
I was 4. So I think that helps, right?
Am I the old guy?
That gets me close to the bottom. Oh, Derek. Well, yeah.
Designee.
I don't even know that you weren't even born, were you? And all I remember is really, obviously the TV, black and white, and my parents crying.
Mm-hmm.
My dad was actually a friend of their family. And I can remember growing up, going out to the compound, but it's a sad day for an American family that gave so much, not just JFK, but Robert as well. So, as we see the younger Kennedys coming up, it should be an interesting next quarter of a century, I guess. But I did want to say that in terms of announcements, I've been out of town, but I went to the dump Saturday with Sean. That's really the best $30 I've ever spent. I got to tell you, Judy. Yeah, right. Thank you. And I know a lot of people are cleaning up their leaves. If you have a certificate from the town, you can go out there. There's a great spot for the leaves, so that you're not just throwing them in the street, blocking up our the drainage system. If you bring bags or boxes or whatever you have, when you get there, you have to just empty the bags because they don't want any plastic bags. And that's open Tuesday through Saturday, 8 to 4 p.m. But I do want to say again that I'm just really impressed with the residents and our commercial vendors and businesses in town that are really doing a remarkable job at cleaning up their properties. Again, just like cleaning up your signs, putting up a little fence. I just came through Onset tonight, the new Devil dogs. There's a veteran who's serving some food down at Stevie B's, and they have a beautiful sign up, nice and neat, no crappy sign stuck in the ground. And it's just people that are a little bit at a time, we're getting the place cleaned up. So thank you.
Okay, I guess I have to tell you where I was. I guess I was in my mother's car at Francis Food Market in Watertown, Massachusetts. I'm not telling you how old I am.
I didn't
how
know
old I
how
was.
old I was.
But
No.
I remember sitting in there, and the radio was on in the car. And back then, by the way, the car was running. I was a young kid. I was sitting in the car, and there was no big deal. I mean, today if you did that, they'd lock you up, throw away the key. But back then it was okay. She just drove in the parking lot, said, I'll be right out, left me there, car running, radio, the whole thing, ran into Francis Food Market to grab some food. And it came on the radio. Just then, the radios canceled out and said the president had been shot. He hadn't been, he hadn't died at that point, although we all know that he was. He didn't at that point. They hadn't made the announcement. That didn't happen until hours later. But at that particular time, they made the announcement, and my mother came out, and I told her, and she started to sob. She literally started to cry. And then the whole next week, we were home from school, basically, watching the whole thing on the TV. I remember watching John with his little saluting thing and the whole procession going down remember they had the horse carriage and the whole thing going down. It was kind of interesting. So it's funny how everybody remembers that. Everybody. I don't care. If you were old enough and you remember it, you got it in your head and you never forget where you were. Anyway, okay, I have no other announcements. Go ahead.
Okay, I'll follow up here. I was 3 months younger than Selectman Holmes at the time. And I remember I saw it come on TV. I think my grandmother was watching me at the time.
Isn't that the 90-day rule, Mr. Chairman, where that makes us equal?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Every year I catch up to you for 9 months, and then I fall behind again. But anyway, I remember seeing it come on TV. My grandmother was watching me at the time. And she was a pretty tough old bird, but even she started to tear up a little bit. And so I do remember the funeral. I watched it again with my grandmother. And that was quite something. As Patrick says, I do remember the horse-drawn caisson going down the street with the flag over the casket, and it was quite something. On a happier note, I've got a couple of announcements here. The first is that on Tuesday the 26th, which is next week, at 6:30 p.m. in the Town Hall cafeteria, Interim Chief Walsh and the Animal Control Officer, Cheryl Gorviat-Dill, have arranged for a coyote seminar. They're bringing a senior biologist, I guess, down from the Mass Fish and Wildlife to explain about what coyotes do, how they live, what kind of precautions to take to avoid them coming into your yard, how to protect your animals, and so on and so forth. So again, that's next week, Tuesday night at 6:30 in the Town Hall cafeteria. The last thing, And like Selectman Holmes, I had 3 things that I was going to announce, and I've managed to forget one. It'll probably come to me next week when it's too late. But anyway, yesterday I had the pleasure, along with Mr. Sullivan, of meeting with the Deputy Administrator of the Mass Department of Transportation Rail Branch, the Greater Attleboro Transportation Authority Chief Frank Gay, and also Salpina out here behind Merchants Way. The reason the state official was down was to look for a location for the Cape Flyer. And what came out of it, after walking around discussing various things, was that they are going to send engineers down soon to design a 300-foot platform, handicap accessible, behind the old Getty gas station that's unused near the fire station. So that's going to be up where there's a lot of parking. Additionally, there's going to be bus service in there. GATRA is looking to use that as their new sort of hub for bus service for the town for now. So that's good news that that's going to happen up there. It keeps it out of the way of the parking behind the businesses on Merchants Way, so I think that'll be a relief to those folks. It'll be less congested back there. It's a better spot for people to park and get on the train if they want to go to the Cape, or even get on the train and go to Boston on the weekend coming back. And further in the rail transportation regard, there's still some ongoing work to hopefully get even more rail service to town. There's not really much to be said at the moment, but hopefully there'll be some announcements soon regarding that. So that's all I had.
Okay.
Yep, next item, please.
Citizens participation, anybody? Come on down. You're the next contestant on The Price is Right.
Good evening.
My name is Joe Mulkern. I'm the chairman of the Disability Commission. I'm glad to hear that news about the handicap going on that site there. I just want to bring you people up to date. We got some serious problems on the Disability Commission. I was appointed to the commission 4 years ago for a 3-year term. At that time, it was a 7-member board. During the 3 years, the selectmen changed the 7-member board to 5 due to numerous meetings without a quorum, which I can see a lot of other boards have problems with. With the 5 members, we still could not get a meeting, even with changing days and times. Presently, we have one of our members who hasn't been able to attend meetings and has not sent a letter to the town clerk as required to replace her. The last request, I called her last week, and she said she sent a letter, but calling the clerk's office today, still no letter, so we have a problem there. Back last Wednesday, November 13th, Judy Whiteside, myself, and town administrator Derek Sullivan, and I met. We had a lot of problems, you know. We talked about lowering memberships to 3 so that we could only have 2 members for a quorum, and they didn't say yes or no, so I don't know what's going to happen with that. I thought maybe it would help out because we tried to have a meeting last night. Only 2 members showed up, so therefore we didn't have a meeting. Then we discussed parking space requirements and signage that we have problems with here in the town parking lot here. I stated according to Mass Regs 521 CMR, we have enough spaces because we have 110 spaces out there now, and I think we have, we have 8 right now, so we're over the limit. But the trouble is, the spaces we have are not in compliance with the rules and regulations from the state. Let me see.
I think Selectman Tropiano has a question for you.
Yes.
I want. It's more for the board and for us. I think we can remove members who aren't showing up to meetings, if I'm not mistaken. Isn't it in our policies? I think we have a policy on this.
Well, we have to, before we do anything like that, we have to talk with council and look at the various
No, I think we
the
have a
enabling
policy.
documents.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, we have a policy
Yeah, I
that
believe
states
so.
that if a member of a committee misses 3 consecutive meetings in a row,
They can be removed.
they can be removed by the board, the local board, right? And then that report is submitted by the chairman to the Board of Selectmen in the clerk's office. I'm not sure if the clerk's office is part of that notification, but the person the person's rights are, when they receive a letter of being removed, and we send that from the office by certified mail.
Yep.
So there's no phone calls, there's no emails. It's certified mail from our office stating that Mr. or Mrs. X, you are being removed from X committee. That person has a right to respond, and we would have a public hearing here to determine whether or not the board would see fit to reinstate. We've only, in 4 years, we've done it once with the, few months back with the Council on Aging.
Yep.
There were a couple of members. It's a process that's available, like Patrick says. It's something we don't like to use. We like to try to work with board members, because sometimes, like the folks who go to Florida, right? They're gone for 4 or 5 months. Technically, they could be removed, but we don't do that. We try to work with people.
Well, I remember.
My point, though, to Patrick, I thought he was going to say this. This seems to be becoming a behavioral pattern from chairman of boards to show up here on a Tuesday night during citizens' participation, Mr. Chairman. I don't know why, but this is not an efficient manner of dealing with anything, because this board can take no action
Not
during
tonight.
citizens' participation on anything because it's not on the agenda. The appropriate process should be that if a chairman has an issue, they should contact you or their liaison or Mr. Sullivan, state the issue so that it can be on. This could have been on tonight's agenda so that we could deal with it. Unfortunately, there's nothing we can do.
Right.
This is not on the agenda, and this is not an emergency, right? But I noticed that more and more on Tuesday night. Citizens' participation, chair people coming up here, giving us minutes and reports, and that really should be an agenda item, so that we can deal with anything you need to deal with.
Well,
I'm not, Joe, I'm not picking on
Okay,
you.
okay.
I'm just
Frustration.
saying that it's becoming a habit lately, and really the process is to contact the board or get it on the agenda so we can help you.
Well,
Otherwise, we
Perhaps,
gotta wait a
perhaps in
week.
that regard.
Let me explain to you.
Well,
may
I
I
think,
speak?
Joe, I think the issue has been explained to you going forward. Let me just consult briefly with my colleagues here. What I would suggest is a letter from the board to all of the committee chairmen explaining what the process for removal is, how to go about it, and if this is what they wish to do, then that's how they should proceed in that regard, and not have to worry about coming here on a Tuesday night to try to deal with it when we can't do anything, when there's nothing on our agenda or on our plates. Selectman Whiteside?
Yes, I'd like to both of your points. Mr. Mulcairn did come to me. We met, and then we met with Mr. Sullivan. The items I believe that are on his list were all discussed, and I knew that he had a meeting coming up. There was no point in putting it on the agenda because there was a meeting scheduled and we didn't know whether there would be a quorum or not be a quorum. So it would be inappropriate, in my opinion, with all due respect, to put it on the agenda then. Mr. Sullivan and Mr. Mulcairn and I discussed the 3 or 4 issues, if you will. We talked about the attendance at the meeting, which really is not Mr. Sullivan's bailiwick, but the other issues do fall somewhat under his control. And my understanding was that he had satisfied you with his suggestions, and the only thing that we really didn't address was the attendance issue.
Well, let me. I've been doing since I've been the chairman. I've gone before up to the selectman's office, discussed it to them. They told me the procedures that I had to send you a letter. I can't send you a letter unless I get approval of the board because we don't have a quorum.
Right.
So I went downstairs. I talked to the clerk's office. They told me that the only way you can get her to resign is she has to send a letter. I've been calling the forum. She has problems. She's a physical problems that she can't make it. I just called her last week, and I said, could you do me a favor? I finally got a hold of her, and she said to me, I will send you a letter. I went down to the clerk's office today, and guess what? The letter's not there. So
Well, in that regard, Joe, might I suggest that a resignation is a pretty simple letter to draft? Perhaps you could talk with her on the phone,
I did.
draft a letter, bring it to her for her signature, and then file it with her,
I
with
went
the
to the
clerk.
procedures. I said, I'll come over your house. I'll type the thing up, just sign
Yep.
it. She said, I will send it there. This is, I talked to her last week. I went down to the clerk's office today. It gave it 3 days in the mail, and I called them this afternoon because the mail hadn't come in. So
Yep.
that's why I put it on the agenda,
we have a
on my
hearing.
list of things to do.
7:15.
So
We have to
am I,
stop.
am I doing something improperly?
It,
You're not doing anything improperly at this point, but let's, why don't you try to get her
I tried.
something to sign and
It
just see
isn't
what you can
working.
do?
It isn't working, so what do I do now?
but that person is not the only person not showing up. It's a 5-member board.
Well, I mean, I know, but, well, that's another,
Yeah.
I'll bring it up, okay, I just want,
I mean,
what do I do now?
At this point, we don't have town council here tonight. That
Okay.
looked like a light agenda, so I told him he didn't need to come down. What I would suggest is you as chairman request of me the opportunity to speak with town council about this on Thursday.
You and I, or just you?
You could be there. You don't need me there. You can talk about this with town council and see what he recommends
On
in this
Tuesday?
circumstance.
What time?
Thursday.
This Thursday. He
This
comes in around 11 o'clock,
Thursday, okay.
and I can check with him and get an appointment for you.
Okay, very good. Okay, so that's one of the little things. Now I want to get
just-
back to,
we gotta put it off.
see
Mr.
where I'm
Mr.
at.
Chairman,
Stop. We have a
please.
hearing. We have to
Please,
put 'em on.
Patrick is absolutely right. We just went through this exercise. If Mr. Mulkern, as the chairman of that committee, goes to you or any member during the week and explains this situation, what probably will happen is you as the chairman will put it on the agenda. This board will remove that person from that committee. We have the right to appoint and to remove.
Correct.
It's in the policy already.
But
Mr.
we have to
Chairman.
we have to
You
check
don't
the
need
charter.
you don't need town council.
No charter.
It's
These
in
are
the-
our
it's in
boards.
The charter has the removal policy. Again, we're getting into legal issues here. We don't have the benefit of town council, so I'm hesitant to make any declarations based upon past instances when we had a vote of a board to remove. In this case, we can't even get the quorum together to get the vote
That's what
of
I'm
the
saying.
board to remove. This is a different circumstance. So
This board, the board of selectmen
This,
can remove.
but this is the point is the
well,
point.
we're
hold
not
on.
going to get it done tonight.
The point,
No.
you're right. But the point is that we can remove them depending on the board, because it depends on what the authority is granted by the state, which is very simple. I mean, we all know which boards we can and cannot. This particular board, we have the right to remove. There are boards that we have the right to without just. There are boards. Our boards we can remove anytime we want because we set them up. There are boards to begin
I
with.
assume that's what you were saying,
Ex-
that
that's-
boards that we
yeah,
appointed.
exactly.
Right.
There
Yep.
are
We'll get
boards.
we'll get
So-
that in memo format from town council on Thursday.
Okay,
The exact
so that-
process,
see,
and that's the one
yep,
we'll follow.
yeah, I
All right,
agree.
If this wasn't during
I gotta-
citizens'
we gotta-
participation, we could help this chairman
Yeah.
out.
Well, that letter will go out too as well.
Can
Selectman Holmes.
we got a public hearing we have to have, and we're late for it. Can I just ask you to step aside for a couple
what?
seconds?
Oh, yeah, I'll come back. because
Yeah,
I
and
guess-
then
I
you can
guess
come
I'm out
back,
of-
okay?
Yes, Snager.
Just so that we can do this
Well, we-
public hearing. We're supposed
we
to
have
do
to
it
be-
at 7:15, and we're late.
Again, some of the issues you're wanting to address here wouldn't properly be before the board during citizen participation. For committee chair people to come here and talk about committee issues, as Selectman Holmes has referenced, it's best to get a hold of me through the office. We can discuss it. If it's an agenda item or something that the board needs to hear in total, then when it goes on the agenda, we go from there. The other thing is you do have a liaison, and it's best if those are brought through her.
Yes, I
So-
know, but the thing is, I'm going back 2 years that we have handicap issues in the town.
I understand that, but I can't do anything for you tonight. And I hate to see you waste your time on a Tuesday
so,
night.
So, can I get put on the agenda for the next town meeting, next meeting, to discuss handicap problems with
Yeah, we'll
parking,
we'll
okay?
talk about it more on Thursday.
Okay, thank
you. We've got to begin the public
Sorry,
hearing.
but all right. In accordance
Thanks.
with the Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 40, Section 56, the Wareham Board of Selectmen will conduct a public hearing on Tuesday, November 19th at 7:15 p.m. in the multi-service room 320, 48 Marion Road, Wareham, Mass., to receive public input relevant to its decision in determining the FY14 residential factor. The residential factor determines the allocation of real estate and personal property tax burden between various classes of property. Oral and written information on the views of the taxpayers of the town with respects to this matter will be received and considered up until the afternoon of the hearing, November 19, 2013. Comments may be sent by mail to the Town Administrator, care of the Selectman's Office, 54 Marion Road, Wareham, Mass. 02571. All comments received before the hearing will be read into the record at the hearing. Oral presentation may be made at the hearing as well. I move we open the public hearing.
Motion made by Selectman Tropiano, seconded by Selectman Holmes. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 4-0-0. Hearing is now open.
Okay. It's up to you.
Good evening. Good evening.
Hello.
Let the record reflect that at the opening of the hearing, our town clerk, Mary Ann Silva, was also present to witness this event.
Is that it? Am I on?
You're on.
You're on.
I am on? Okay.
No.
Good evening.
Yeah.
Again, for our yearly, you're new, but most of you were here last year. You're new too, right?
Yeah, technically, yeah. I'm
when-
old, but I'm
I'm
new.
old too.
No, new. New on the board since I was here last year. You have, I asked her to,
That's
to
correct.
put it, you have your forms, we'll follow along that if you'd like. This is to determine whether you want to split the rate, or shift the burden from residential to commercial. If we look at the first page, you're going to take a vote later on as to whether you want to split the rate or keep it as a single rate. You historically have had a single rate. Our rate in this past year has been $10.47, applied across the board to all classes and all types of property. You have the opportunity to look at some different scenarios that would shift that burden. Additionally, last year I was asked about some other options that you have as selectmen to choose other methods of tax relief or shifting the burden. None of these increase your revenue. None. They shift burdens, they provide for exemptions, but none increase your levy or your taxes. They shift it. There's a short paragraph here about two others that are available and sometimes discussed at this time, but they're very complex, is the residential exemption, which are for owner-occupied, single-family residential properties. So that would leave out your summer residents, and it shifts up to 20% of their bill, of their assessment. And then there's a long formula, and it'll shift the burden onto the other single-family, the summer homes, personal property, and other residential factors. But single-family residential, and then you vote up the rate you want to go to, whether you want to go to 230, 240, 250, and what percentage you want to exempt. The same thing with the small commercial. You can reduce by 10%, it's actually $100,000, isn't it? Up to 10% of the assessed value of the eligible properties. Those two have to be owner-occupied, value of less than $1 million, and no more than 10 employees. Currently, the latest statistics I have, in Wareham, 207 out of the 675 commercial and industrial properties meet that. Those records come down because of the health insurance that's required to turn in, so they have to turn in whether they're, how many employees and so forth they have.
Just a note on those exemptions. If you were to decide on any one of those exemptions, that would not be something that you'd be able to do this evening for this coming year. These projects usually take about a year to a year and a half to gather the information and then put it together for that. Also, on one of the criteria residential properties, it does not apply to any homes that are listed as post office boxes, which unfortunately in this town is more than half of Onset. So if you were a resident, I know Mr. Holmes, it is Onset, and let's just say his address was the P.O. Box in the center of town, he would not be eligible for any residential exemption because he has a P.O. Box.
Right, from Stonebridge, Mr. Chairman, from Stonebridge out to Buttermilk Bay, those are all mail through Buzzards Bay.
Correct.
Anything
It was
on
I
this
just
side-
wanted to
on
give you
this
that
side,
there was
it's
a
all-
factor that that residential exemption that
anything on
excludes
this side is
people.
all P.O.
Which
Box.
obviously would
Right.
be unfair, obviously.
Correct.
I mean, that's-
But on
unreasonable.
these two exemptions and other exemptions that are available for people in the town, I would like to come back in January when it's not as busy, if you'd like, and go through these if either one of them was of interest to administration or to the board.
I want to talk, I'd like to ask about the commercial split rate with the residential.
Okay,
we've
that's
talked
what we're
about
gonna
this
cover
over the
now.
years, and that's what I want to
Yeah.
really sort
What
of
are
focus
the
on.
classes? Some of us aren't familiar with which class it would split
Right.
from. The residentials are single families, condominiums, mobile homes, multifamilies 2 to 6, and large complexes. So your
Well,
What-
but excuse me, mobile homes are, what, $15 a month, period, flat rate by state law, right? We don't
we don't
assess,
tax
we don't
mobile
assess,
homes
the-
at
right.
all. We don't
But you said
assess them.
mobile homes are included, but they're really
Well,
not.
they're
It was mobile home parks.
Parks.
So
Oh,
the
okay,
land
park would be
Okay,
excluded.
all right.
Not,
Mobile
not
home
giving you the
parks.
units, but
Okay,
the,
good.
but
I
the
just
land.
It's
wanted to
listed
clarify
right
that,
here.
that it
It's
wasn't the
mobile
mobile
home
homes
parks.
themselves. Okay, thanks.
multifamilies, which are 2 to 6, plus all the larger ones, like 815 Main Street. Those fall into the single-family class, even the 30, 40 unit complexes.
Okay.
And then residential land. Now, commercial, industrial, and personal property, which will be referred to as CIP, commercial, industrial, and personal property throughout the presentation. Office buildings, commercial stores, restaurants, the mall, industrial buildings up in the Enterprise Drive and so forth. All commercial and industrially zoned land, chapter land. So they're getting a benefit, and then they would be chapter land falls in this class. And then all personal property, both second home, personal property, which they have a tax on, and businesses' personal property. The shift would be to that class, CIP, from the single-family class.
Right.
On the next page, the classes by value and percentage. This is the breakout of, these are last year's numbers, showing you what percentage of the levy, the share of each class is. When we group it together, the residential is 82%, takes up and pays for 82% of the levy, and the residential, which is commercial, industrial, and personal, is 18%. Now, typically, in recent years, it's been recommended that the commercial, industrial, and personal property be closer to a 20% in order to consider a split rate. There are administration costs, there's analysis to be done, maybe new software, and so forth. It also, I know Wareham is trying to grow businesses, and it puts you on a more competitive edge if we have a one single factor. The next
Chairman.
is those of us that like the
Is
visual.
this interactive, or you want to wait?
No, 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 go ahead.
Doesn't bother me.
That's why I was asking him what he thought.
Would you want to ask a question?
Yes,
Yeah.
go ahead.
When you say it is recommended that it be closer to that 20 seems to be the number, who's making that recommendation?
If some of the paperwork I sent you goes through some scenarios since back in 2004, and just watching towns and how it functioned, and also where it best served its purpose. Probably when we get into the numbers, you'll see when it may benefit the cost of implementing it, I think, versus the non-cost, because it's a very minimal amount, actually, when you look at it, unless you go clear to the 150 end. 1.50% shift, it's a very small amount of savings on the residential side. It's the
Okay,
they up at the
maybe-
Division of
maybe-
Local Services.
Maybe I lost you.
Okay, you want to, go ahead.
I
think Mr.
was thinking that you were talking about tonight's vote of a single or unified rate or a split rate. Is this next page you're talking about, is this part of the exemption program? Is that what
No.
you're talking about? You're talking about our regular.
All of this is the split rate.
Okay, so
All of this is the split rate.
all right. So the 18% again, this 20% number.
Yes.
Who recommends that number?
No one recommended it. It's in the Division of Local Services analysis. and they analyze it, and
Because it says it is recommended.
and I should have put in there probably the Division of Local Services paperwork. It's in the booklet that I emailed all of you.
Right. But
About some shifts, 10%, 5%, and when it became feasible to do it.
Right.
It used to be 10%, it's now moved on to 20% because of the economic.
And the reason I'm asking you is because people who are watching you and listening to this, they didn't get those emails.
Okay,
So they have no idea what you're talking about when you say I sent you an email.
okay.
Right?
Mr.
So-
Holmes, on some of the studies that have been done, that the split from residential to commercial, if the property has more than 20% commercial, it's more beneficial for the rates savings for the residential part, because it goes more to the commercial. If you're under that, you're putting a little more on the commercial, but the residents themselves aren't only saving, a few pennies on the tax rate. So they don't see a difference on those smaller numbers.
Okay. Thank you.
And for those who are visual, there's a pie chart of ours percentages. So a single rate versus a split rate. The example on this first page is of our median assessment, or average assessment of the single-family home in Wareham is $230,000, and the average of the commercial industrial CIP is only $650,000. The average I thought was interesting because it's kind of tight. So the average bill right now on a single rate is $2,615 on the residential side and $6,805 on the commercial side. So if we look down the first section here, we're now going to start to shift it by 1.10% from the residential to the commercial. Same numbers with the shift. The residential saves $57, the commercial bears a burden of $681 increase. Now it follows through on the next page with those same numbers, your average bill, your average assessment, and then the bill changes as you go through 1.20, 1.30, 1.50 shifts, which is as high as you can go as 1.50. And if you see at the bottom, the residential on a 1.50 shift, they save $230, while the residential the commercial at $650 has an increase of $2,722. There's where the 20%, I think, analysis comes in, is that the cost shift, you have to, when your taxes are high, when your CIP is a little greater, it makes more sense for the single family. We're close to that 20%.
Right, but we have been steadily increasing in this number, right? If I remember right, I remember back a while when we were 12%. So I think that we are getting to that goal, or we're getting to that point, and maybe once we add the hotel, the new Walmart, various odd projects, that maybe we'll be at that rate, and maybe because obviously we don't want to shift an exorbitant amount of to whatever, but we want to benefit the residents as much as we can, and that's obviously one way to do it. And a lot of places do that in order to make that work, but it has to be. We have to make it work so that it works for both sides.
Correct.
In a reasonable number. Well, you can't charge somebody $2,700 extra so that the residents can get a break. It's just
Well, and that's only on
not
the
that I don't want to
average
give the
assessment.
residents a breaks, because I do. I prefer to give the residents a
Well,
break.
I think, Mr. Trapiano, if you look, some of the examples after that show a larger value of
I
different
see
properties.
that. I did. I saw that.
If you go to, like, the last page of that scenario on the shift of 1.5 on, say, a business that's worth $1.2 million, it's going to, it will save, the residents, $1,400 on a $1 million property. So somebody in the audience say, well, I have $230. Let the guy who has $1 million house pay the extra money. But if you switch that over to the commercial, it's showing almost $6,500 onto that business.
Right, exactly.
And I know Elsa's put in the packet that a lot of times the gentleman may own, or someone may own, a strip mall, and the tenants are in there. Well, he owns the thing. Well, he's not going to pay the extra $6,000, so he's going to raise the rent on the tenant.
Right.
So the tenant raises the prices or cuts an employee. So the owner doesn't care about that.
Exactly.
I mean,
And
he
some of
does,
them
but-
might be on the edge, and I know we're
but
not there
this could
yet.
affect more of the local business owners.
I've
'cause
been
they're
in-
going to have to pay the extra.
I've been an advocate of this for years, to shift the cost a little bit to the commercial, because hey, they are being responsible to the community and helping out the residents and being responsible parts of the community as a rep. But it has to get to that point before we can do it, and I think we're not there yet.
Right. A
I
lot
think
of the
we should
shift
stay
that
with
you've
the single
seen
rate, personally.
from your residential to your commercial has been in chapter land coming in and out. That's the biggest swing in our percentages.
Right.
The 3 years I've been here.
I think
So-
the simple way, and I was just doing some rough calculations on it, was if we actually went for a split tax rate to right now to get it to about the 80-20, you know, for every dollar we're saving the residential, it's costing commercial $4.50.
Right.
So that's
Pretty big hit.
yeah.
Especially if you're trying to woo more commercial in and create more jobs and, you know, the whole thing. That does get to the point, like I said, as time goes on. And I started this way back in I think about 1996 or so, when I was on the finance committee. I was a proponent of this, but the numbers didn't work. And at that time, we were really small amount. Our commercial base was really small. So it's growing, and it's getting to that point where it'll become feasible. But I don't think we're ready yet.
Yeah, shifting it through development is the
Yes,
preferable.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
So you can review the numbers. They go from the different price ranges, and then they stay the same, but we're taking the same percentage. The $1.25 million residential versus the $1.25 million commercial. And then perhaps more helpful will be the two pie charts. The single-family assessment ranges at 1.20 shifting by 1.20. The rate becomes, if it was our rate that we're using today, the rate would become $10.01 for the residential. And if you look down at the savings in each range of assessment values, even the 1.2 to $2 million is only a 960, but the under 230,000 is 106, which is 71%. Most of that's land. And then if you flip the page to the commercial side and you look at the drastic increases to our commercial base, for instance, 2 million to 3 million is an increase up at the 3 million end of 6,270, and our largest mall would increase by almost $100,000 a year.
Okay.
The next is a chart that shows some of our neighbors and who's split and who isn't. Attleboro and Carver's shift is 135 and 130 respectively, with a CIP at 19.40 and 17.61. Now, in my communications with the Carver assessor, they primarily split to capture back some of the chapter land values. They have cranberry bogs, and that's one, because of the benefits that they get in the taxes, they have shifted their rate to recapture.
May I
Selectman
just,
Whiteside?
yeah, just, again, the people who are listening to you are not familiar with all of the terminology that you are using, so
Chapter
Chapter land
chapter
is-
land can include cranberry bogs, not open space. We don't have any open space.
forestry
Cranberry
land.
bogs, forestry land,
Farms,
camping
cranberries.
farms.
One of the things that happens with cranberry bogs is we had it happen to us 2 years in a row. If you remember, the state reduced the value by 50%, and then the following year they did it again, if you remember right, 2 years in a row. And of course that shifted all the tax burden to the residents, our good chunk of money to the residents, because you know how 2.5 works. It ends up shifting it over to the residents, and that was hard to take. And I think that's why a few of the towns tried to recapture. And that's why they did what they did, even at the 11,
Right, just
some of
the
them were at
fir-
11%, but they managed to recapture and not hurt. Maybe they had a different commercial base than we do, you know?
Right. As a answer to Ms. Whiteside's question, on the chapter land, as you said, Mr. Trapiano, the state sets the values on all cranberry bogs. The
Exactly.
town doesn't, it's done by the state. And that their values usually calculated on a 5-year product. So the average over 5 years is what they're making per barrel in cranberry. So if they have a couple of bad years, the state devalues the cranberry bogs, so their values go down, so they pay less. In the Bantage years, the values go up and they pay more. So as Elsa had said, some of the towns had gone to the split because when their values go down, they're still trying to get the same money from the growers in the chapter land and
Right.
then putting the burden onto the residential taxpayer.
I mean, a few of the towns that I see are 11% commercial, and they got a split, and that's I mean that's just a huge cost to the whatever. But I'm assuming that there must be huge numbers of bogs and charter land involved, and that's why they did that.
Correct.
Because they're trying to recoup what they lost when the state refixed the numbers somewhere along the way. That's the only thing I can think of. Other than that, they'd be hurting all the regular kind of businesses that we have, big time.
Selectman Holmes?
Well, I think if you look at this chart, the comparison chart, it's too bad we didn't have a little PowerPoint so people could see this. Attleboro, Barnstable, Carver, Bridgewater,
Oh,
right? If you look at their values, if we're tapping the businesses for 18% right now, right? We're pretty much second on the list, third on the list. Attleboro is 19.4, and Middleborough is 20.5, and then you have Wareham at 18. So we're pretty high on that list.
Yep.
And it would seem that the other towns didn't get the message of the 20% recommendation, right?
Well, not all these are split. Only 3 of these towns on this chart are split.
Right.
Right.
So I mean, we look
Yeah.
pretty good on that list as being close to the 20. And it looks like we come in
Business
third.
friendly.
I'm sorry.
Business friendly.
Well, that's
Carver,
part of the game is
Middleborough,
that
the only split
we're
ones.
trying to get as much out of them as we can and still. But yeah. And the second half of that question was, what is the percentage in Wareham of cranberry land? Do you have that number?
May be able to abstract it from that.
And I guess, well,
On
I
the
mean, maybe this would be an easier answer. And over the last 3 or 4 years, have we been hurt by the fact that maybe they've had some bad years and the state has cut their responsibility to the town? Have you seen that?
I've
Steve?
seen a lot of it come out of chapter and get built. For instance, Makepeace.
A lot of the recent chapter land has, like Makepeace has taken a lot of their chapter land out to make Rosebrooks. That's now on the tax rolls as commercial base.
Right.
Some of the cranberry bogs during low seasons have sold some of their upland for house lots. So a lot of that chapter land has come out, is now on the tax rolls as residential or productive at full and fair tax
Okay.
value.
But when it comes out, don't they have to pay
Rollback.
the rollback?
They pay a rollback
They have what is
tax.
called a rollback
Right.
tax. Going back so
Back-
many years that they've taken
back
it
to
out,
the, yeah.
they have to pay a back tax for
Right.
the break that they received, yes.
So do we have a number on what that percentage of
Here, I
chapel
gotta
land
get my
is here in Wareham? I don't see it on the front.
Percentage, no, but let's see if we can do it. You want my calculator?
Well,
Here it
I mean, I
is.
don't want to.
But you got you got that. And
Well, I just thought it'd be nice to see that on
Okay,
the front
yes.
page to see what that number is.
I hate to poke at the cranberry boggers.
I'm not
but it's a
poking at
fact.
anyone,
No,
ma'am.
I didn't mean poke, but it's.
I'm just asking a question.
Just looking
is-
roughly on the
ballpark.
numbers, Mr. Holmes, about 10%.
of our land in Wareham is considered
As
chapter.
chapter land is considered part of that commercial industrial properties,
Okay.
approximately 10%.
Thanks.
So it's about half?
Yes.
Selectman Whiteside?
10%, can you say that again? 10% of the chapter land?
Just not having the numbers, so just the assessment and valuation divided by the total value of the town, it's roughly about 8 to 10% of the value of commercial land of the cranberry bogs is like the total valuation of the town.
Okay, and then
Which is 18%.
there are other properties that are not taxed at all, that do not contribute to the tax base, is that correct?
Yes, that'd be what they call your state exempt properties. That would be like churches,
Right.
state-owned land. The state owns land in the town,
Post
so they're
offices.
exempt. Post office.
Do you have any idea?
We have the post
That's
office on
classified in the
Toby Road.
code there. Would have to do a more detailed analysis to pick those individuals out for you. I couldn't give you that tonight.
Well, the exempt value is 287,524,000.
Pretty good
And
chunk.
I would
that
say
again?
that number is not,
That's a
because
pretty
we
good
don't
chunk.
revalue exempt
Right.
properties
Yeah,
like we
3
do
billion.
residential. Sometimes they could sit
a
for
huge
several
chunk.
years to meet the state statutes
It's about
of
9%.
revaluing all exempt properties.
What was that number again?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Just 287 million of exempt property.
Of the,
Of
That's the
valuation, that's not
valuation.
Valuation, but that
taxes.
includes things like the state highway, Route 25, cutting all the way
Oh,
through,
oh,
495 and
I was
all
gonna
that,
say.
so.
We only have two small post offices.
yeah, but there's land.
But also, if you have like minor forests, a state forest, that's a
Okay,
that's an
alright.
exempt property.
So it is
State
quite,
roads.
That is quite a bit then. That is
Yes.
quite a bit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably about 8% of
It is quite a bit.
the total, looking at
Yeah.
the 3.1 billion number.
Well, from-
Assessments.
Yeah, on the form, I know we're kind of getting off the track from the resident factor, but the real and personal property total value of the town is $3,146,000,000 rounded. And then you had the extra 287 million in exempt or state-owned land.
Exempt.
And that doesn't mean we're billionaires, so.
Thank
So
you.
that's
So those percentages would be more helpful to you?
It's just nice. It's a nice factoid to know when you're looking
Okay.
at the whole town. I think. My opinion.
Yeah, well, let's. I'm not gonna, do you wanna do the end?
No, I think you've already gone through those.
We've gone through them all?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we've already gone
That
through
a
them.
split rate, the end, and I think you have in front of you, a split rate can possibly make Wareham less competitive to other communities or be more competitive if you don't split the rate. The shift would impact summer residents with their personal property, which can also make a difference, because that means a big deal to some of the summer people in the cost they have to pay for their furnishings. This is their furnishings in their house is 3% of their building value. Many of the town's properties are leased, and you have local businesses renting them, and if you shift the rate, it can draw down onto your local businesses as well as the larger big box stores that you have in town. And then there is the administrative cost in implementing it. And I think once you put it in, you don't just move it back out. You put it in. I couldn't find any scenario that showed that they'd shifted it back out, because you typically shifted and you're not going to see another big, unless you lose all your commercial base. So then it would be a matter of determining each year what percentage you want to shift.
Right.
So it's a decision that should be a lot of analysis put into to determine where and when.
Get public input on this.
Selectman Whiteside?
Yes, it seems to me that Attleboro, I think it's a city, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so, and it's also an old mill city where there's it's a huge difference between Wareham and Attleboro in terms of history, and therefore possibly why they did the shift. Carver, I would say, is more like Wareham than, and Middleborough as well. But I think Attleboro being in there is really, well, it's information. It's not really.
It shows a good example of who shifts.
Yeah, it shows an example of who shifts, but you don't have here some of the other Plymouth County real estate or in the neighbor. I mean, I don't really consider Attleboro to be a neighbor, to be honest with you.
I was
It takes
trying to
me-
find some that
Yeah.
were shifted.
Oh, okay.
You had to
No,
go that
that's
far
fine.
away, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. That's a good point then.
And you can see
Yeah.
your CIP value and total value
Mhm.
compared to Wareham's CIP value and total value, which I felt was another.
Well, if you look at the total
additional
number,
200 million.
right? But you also have, area, real estate area, and it would have been, I think, interesting to have Plymouth on here, because Plymouth is the largest city or town in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts in terms of land area. I'm not being critical of you at
No,
all.
no,
Please
no.
understand it is contiguous to us, and it also is a competitor for some of our businesses. They have a very large, 5-year-old process of building malls and things like that. We have the benefit of being in the crux of some interstate highways, or that's a problem because it impacts our car insurance rates because of the highways going through. You may never have an accident in your entire life, but if you use Wareham as your residence, you're going to get nailed for everybody who ever has had a fender bender on
the highway.
195, 25, or any of those other.
Time to move.
Yeah, exactly. So, so there are benefits to it, but it seems that your explanation of who would be impacted indicates to me that we have been discussing this for more than Mr. Tropiano's memory. I can remember discussing this 30 some odd years ago, the same kind of conversation. At that point, we had a very small C&I base, and it was an attempt to attract business. So I'm guessing that while your presentation, you need to make the presentation, and it may not be quite the time for us to shift the burden.
And I just looked it up real quick. Plymouth doesn't shift, but
Yep.
their percentage is 77.89, and the CIP is 22.11. So
Okay.
They could
yeah,
hypothetically work better.
Yeah.
So-
I think if you look at those three, like you were saying, the Middleborough is obviously over the threshold considerably, and Attleboro being a city, they're up there. Carver's issue is the charters, no question about it, because they have a minuscule commercial base over there. They really have very little
Right.
as far as commercial base is. So they were just trying to get the charter money back. That's what they were trying to do.
Correct.
I mean, that's the only reason why they were in there.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they wouldn't have been. 77,
Roughly 77 and a half to
Yeah.
22 and a half.
22,
And they have a single rate.
and they have a single rate.
Yes, if you look on this chart, you can see how low their Carver's
Oh, yeah, there's no question.
value is in what they have in the CIP.
They have lots of bog land. I mean, lots, and of course that's what cost them, and that's why they shifted it. There's no question, because if you've been to Carver, and we all have, I mean, they have very small commercial areas, very little commercial.
Correct.
So
Ms. Miller, I'm sorry, just 1 second. On the personal property, what was the value of that? The value that we assess roughly, if you don't have it.
All personal property, it is 126,046,660.
Thank you.
Well, at this point, it seems that
The one I find very interesting is Falmouth. When you look at Falmouth, 92 resident, 7 commercial.
I know, no commercial.
And, you don't think of Falmouth, but when you drive through Falmouth, and I'm very familiar with Falmouth, there's a lot of commercial all throughout Falmouth. It's not like a big mall here, a big mall there, but they have a lot of commercial stuff in Falmouth, and they have a couple of malls growing. But that's a huge
Look at their value,
difference.
though. Look at their total
value
value.
is the issue.
I'm sorry?
Look at their total value. That's what's offsetting to that percentage.
Right.
Right, but I mean, the
Yeah.
fact that it's 92 residential and 7, I mean, they aren't even close to the 20, right?
No.
So you can imagine if they ever did that. Wow. They do have a lot of commercial. Yeah.
The reason I had asked about
It's
the personal
interesting to
property.
see what
oh,
others
sorry.
are doing, though. I think that's very helpful to see.
There
that.
is a, online, the whole state.
Mhm.
You can look at it all. I know, but I mean, it is on there. I just pulled
You need
out.
to see all that and pick the best ones to show us, right? Is
right.
that what it is?
Okay, was there anything
Or
else?
your board. I mean, you have your board that you have to satisfy.
That's right. Yeah, she's got 2 hoops to jump through. Is there anybody here who'd like to speak to this? This is a public hearing. Seeing no one, I will ask Mr. Sullivan if anybody has submitted any written information to be read into the record.
No.
I move we close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion to close by Selectman Tropiano, seconded by Selectman Whiteside. All in favor? Aye. Opposed,
I'm-
abstained,
I
4-0-0.
move we keep the single rate.
Motion made by Selectman Tropiano, seconded by Selectman Holmes. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 4-0-0. We'll continue for the next year with the single rate.
Okay, we need to,
Just,
Thank you for your
just, Mr.
presentation.
Chairman,
Yeah.
not to interrupt, but I believe
Get to
in
the-
prior years, the motion would be, I like the board to adopt a residential factor of 1.
okay.
Let
All
me
right,
read
I'll,
it.
Instead of
I'll
saying
do
a
it.
single tax rate, I
Adopt.
think
Yeah,
the
that's
for
fine.
adopt a
I-
residential factor of
I-
1.
I-
You have the vote on that piece
I
of
move
paper.
that the board,
It's
Wait a
right
second.
here, Mr. Tropiano. Read that first line.
I have it right there.
Wait,
Okay, I move that we select the residential factor of 1.
Motion made by Selectman Tropiano, seconded by Selectman Holmes. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained.
All right, we need to take a couple of minute break so the clerk can come up because we got to sign and she's got to do the magic.
Thank you very much for all your work on
Yes,
this.
thank you very much. Thank you
very
Assessor
much.
and the Board of
Appreciate it.
Assessors, thank you very
Ms.
much.
Miller,
Next, your
thank you.
PowerPoint?
Oh, that would
I'd
be
like
great,
to
so
do
people
that.
can see,
Yes.
so people can see what you're
We'll
talking
have to
about.
check with the town administrator. I'm not sure if it's in our budget that we can do the
It's probably
PowerPoints.
Well,
I'll bring a laptop
Yeah,
from
I
home.
didn't say that. I
well,
didn't say that.
Steve, our projector recently died, so if you could buy us a projector too, we'd be real happy about that as well.
All right.
We're looking for
Excuse me,
donations.
The other thing,
Time out. Time
may
out.
I make
hold
a
on.
suggestion? That issues of this ilk, of this kind, just like the bylaw changes, the zoning bylaws, those proposed changes were actually available to the public on the website. And that was this on the website?
I don't know if this was on the data ahead of time.
Okay, but what I'm saying is, it certainly would be, I'm not sure how difficult it would be to do, but I think it would be appropriate
Yep.
to have the public,
First, we should
Yep.
ask the assessor if it was on, because it may have been on.
no.
Was this on the website, Steve, the presentation? Do you know?
No, I would say no, but what we can do is we can put this one on so that going forward, then as we update it every year so that there's a new one going
Yeah,
forward.
I think it's a very good idea.
I'll bring my laptop next year. You just bring a USB stick, all right? Okay. We'll make that deal.
Okay, can everybody sign this, please? Sign, Peter. Clerk, can you come up, Madam Clerk? Can you come up, please? Come on down.
Gateway to go in and sign, gateway, one that needs to go in,
One.
sign at least.
Okay.
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming in, Madam Clerk.
All right, let's move on. Let's go to authorization to sign bills. We have none. Approval of minutes. I have the minutes from October 15th, 2013. It's a regular meeting of the Selectmen Sewer Commissioners.
Move that they be adopted as
Second.
presented.
Motion to accept by Selectman Whiteside, seconded by Selectman Holmes. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 5-0-0. Approved.
We have Alan's names on these, so he's going to have to, we're going to have to.
Wait a minute,
have them
4-0-0.
changed before we can sign them.
Yep.
Okay, the next is the November the 5th meeting,
Move that they
2013.
Move
Minutes.
acceptance.
Second.
Of regular sewer, okay.
Motion made to approve by Selectman Whiteside, seconded by Selectman Holmes. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 4-0-0.
The
Approved.
next is November the 12th, meeting of Selectmen Sewer Commissioners,
The regular session, I will
regular session, yes.
move to accept the regular session meeting.
Second.
Motion made to accept by Selectman Whiteside, seconded by Selectman Tropiano. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
Aye.
Okay.
301, Selectman Holmes abstaining.
Okay, and this is the October 28, 2013 executive session minutes.
Move to, you were here.
May I make a motion to move to accept and hold?
Second.
Motion made to accept and hold, but made by Selectman Holmes, seconded by Selectman Whiteside. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? 400.
Okay, that's it for minutes. Thank you. All right, let's move on. We have AK, name change for AK Auto Sales, Inc. DBA AKJ Used Autos, Inc. 2234 Cranberry Highway. Is anybody here from
No.
them? Okay.
No, this was just,
It's just a name change.
it's just the, a name change in the, from used to sales, I believe. That's what Mr. Healy was looking for.
AKJ Used Auto Sales to AKJ Auto Sales, Inc.
Right.
Okay.
I'd make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Selectman Holmes, seconded by Selectman Whiteside. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? 400.
Thank you.
Sign that, please. Ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so that takes care of that. Sewer business, I don't, we have funding source for contract 2, but we're still waiting for DOR on that. I believe there is no other sewer business tonight. The next thing is discussion to town administrator for next year. Anybody have anything they want to bring up, Judy?
No, I think that we had a
Pretty good
Pretty
session
good
last
discussion.
week. Yeah. Steve, anything that you'd like to bring up? Okay. Okay, I'm all set.
Thank you.
All right, and it's any other town business within the last 48 hours, anticipated in the last 48 hours. Anybody have any of that?
No.
Nope, fine.
Nope.
Okay, town administrators report. You're up. For what?
Oh, Mary Ann's.
Yeah, she took it.
She took it.
She had to take it for the things.
Thank you. The just an additional update. We had the Department of Revenue field representative Jared Curtison today. I appreciate all his help. He came in and worked through a couple large stacks of paper that he's brought home with him. So I appreciate the hard work from the Department of Revenue. The auditors are remaining with us and have been with us for the past week and are still going through all the papers. This is several weeks ahead of last year's schedule, so I appreciate them coming out and working with us. We've had it's funny, a lot of the things are, the announcements we speak about are items we work together with, such as last Saturday's meeting, the meeting with the MBTA. But one of the interesting things I wanted to bring up is I asked about the personal property, what we actually, the levy is. So it's an interesting thing that residents that have their second home are, they bring us additional $1.3 million of revenue a year just because of the personal property. So that's one of the things that we shouldn't forget. So it's often, I receive the emails that say it's tough for them because they feel they don't have representation with the way we have the form of government. So please make sure to email us and such, and we do take the suggestions, and I appreciate them. The only thing I can't disprove is a negative. So when you hear a rumor that doesn't exist, and you want some information as saying that that's not happening, I can't necessarily do that because it doesn't exist. So I appreciate it. Yeah, sure.
Guess
Okay.
that wraps that up.
Liaison reports. Judy?
I was going to report on my meeting with Mr. Mulkern, but I guess I don't need to.
Nice job.
And I have submitted my letter to be on the Superintendent's Advisory Committee. as we discussed last week, wondered if any of you wanted to do that instead. And that, I think, is that.
Steve's all set? Okay, I just want to mention a little bit about our meeting. We had a nice meeting with the Finance Committee and the School Department to discuss budgets going forward. And I think a lot came out of it because I think we kind of all got on the same page, which is sort of a good thing for us going forward. I mean, we have a lot of financial things that we're going to have to deal with this year. To FY15 is going to be problematic, as well as every other year from here on out. But at least if we're talking and working together, that maybe we can come up with some solutions and some things that the town can do to make this a little easier. And the meeting was just really productive the way I can see it, especially for a first meeting. And I just wanted everybody to know that happened. If you didn't get to see it on TV, it was really a very good meeting. And I appreciate everybody who came from all sides. All boards had quorums. All boards were there represented. All boards had good input, and it was just something I thought was phenomenal. So I just wanted to bring that up. Okay, Peter.
Thank you. I was remiss earlier when I was talking about the impending arrival of the Cape Flyer. We need to thank Governor Patrick, Representative Williams-Gifford, who's worked with her counterpart over in Mattapoisett, Representative Bill Strauss, who was the chairman of the House Committee on Transportation. We need to thank the people who've been involved from the Mass DOT and MBTA side. But I think most of all, going forward with this, we need to thank Selectman Slavin, who unfortunately couldn't be here for this meeting. And I truly regretted that he was unable to be here for the meeting because he has spent years cultivating the relationships with the various players that you have to bring to the table to get something like this done. He knows them all. He can speak to them. He's kept the town on the radar, even when the town at the time didn't necessarily follow him, perhaps where they should have gone. And Tuesday's meeting was really the culmination of the years and years and years of work that he's put in. So in my mind, when this sucker gets built, it's going to be Slavin Station. So I just wanted to put that out there. And that's all I have.
Second.
Motion made by Selectman Holmes, seconded by Selectman Whiteside. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? 4-0-0. Thank you. Good night.